with courage that is, I think, a role model for any of us who face suffering and death. Thirdly, I find in saints, moral saints and heroes, a third virtue. It's their self-control and courage is complemented with practical wisdom, insight and understanding into the contingencies of the situations in which they find themselves. Admiral Stockdale illustrated that in his response to the crisis that visited him in prison, where he talks about impulsive behavior, but impulsive behavior built on wisdom and insight, I think. The Stoic ideal, Aristotle taught us to do the right thing in the right way at the right time. So there's often no actual algorithmic rule that you can use in deciding what's the morally right thing, even though we have principles that guide us in this respect. My teacher at Union Theological Seminary in my early days put this very nicely. His name was Reinhold Niebuhr, great theologian, and he wrote this to illustrate the relationship of the virtues. When he wrote this prayer, Lord, give me courage to change the things which can be changed. And Lord, give me patience to accept the things that cannot be changed. And most of all, Lord, give me the wisdom to know the difference. It's that wisdom to know the difference that marks out a deeply moral person. The fourth virtue that saints and heroes embody is a deep sense of personal responsibility, a willingness to be held accountable for their action, and to say, as the cadets do at West Point, no excuse, sir, that we're ultimately responsible for what we do and who we are and shouldn't pass the buck. Now, we live in a society where passing the buck has become an all-time global profession. It's even gotten into family practice. Consider the couple in Montclair, New Jersey, not far from where I live, Warren and Patricia Simpson, who declared that because they're not very good at child rearing and don't much like it, they've decided to exercise their rights, their human right to retire from child rearing, and they're giving their 3 children up for adoption because they're just kind of boring. It's kind of boring to have to take care of them, and they don't think they're very good at it. So they're opting out of their responsibility to live a kind of self-indulgent life. So the moral saint and hero takes responsibility for his actions or her actions and is willing to be held accountable for them. And finally, saints and heroes are deeply committed to the high moral ideals. Their repertoire of moral categories goes far beyond mere minimal morality of decency, with its categories of morally right and morally permissible, and encompass high altruism for the good of society at large. Their motto, duty, honor, country, is the motto of moral people at the academies, is not a mere shibboleth, but an expression of the idea that life is something is worth living and dying for. And unless one has these highest goals and is habitually working towards internalizing values, life is really not worth living. As Socrates says, the unexamined life, by which he meant the moral life, is really not worth living at all. And in this regard, I think one ought, in our society, especially in colleges and universities, be promoting strong honor codes. Because even though honor codes are more minimal than maximal, they're at least the first step to help us all, especially young people, realize that morality is serious and that we ought to enforce a moral point of view. It's a recent study from Princeton showed that schools that have honor codes have minuscule amounts of cheating take place. Whereas colleges, they did a study of over 200 colleges without honor code, at those schools, over 68% of the students cheat on some kind of a regular basis. So The first step, I suppose, in becoming a more moral group is to start taking something like an honor code to heart. So what is the value of moral saints and heroes? Of the early Christian martyrs, it was said, the blood of these martyrs was the seed of the church. For every martyr who was burned at the stake or fed to the lions, scores of converts, inspired by their commitments and heroism, took their place and enhanced the Christian community. I believe that the sufferings and sacrifices of the past and present moral saints and heroes are the seed of a future moral world where peace, freedom, and justice triumph over injustice and evil and greed. But even now, we can witness tokens of their accomplishment. The courageous integrity of Socrates is revealed again and again in people like Admiral Stockdale and Rafael Nunez, in Mother Teresa, and in many other people who are lesser known. I think of many of one of my teachers growing up who exhibited moral saintliness and heroism in such a way that inspired me to be a better person while a high school student. And then, of course, there's Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and Father Colby, whom we've already mentioned. Now, Admiral Stockdale points out that moral heroism shows itself best, not in success, but in failure, where the good is threatened. Perhaps it doesn't seem as though we need saints and heroes today, when our national and global economy is at an all-time high. But if history is any guide to the unknown future, we should not bet on infinite prosperity, but realize that evil always finds a way to reemerge. When it does, the saints and heroes will be needed to defend the good. But like St. Thomas More of old, the heroes must be men and women of all seasons, in peace and war, on the battlefield and in the prison camp, in success and failure, in the church and in business, in academia, and wherever human interchange takes place. Even in prosperity, the saints and heroes stand out to remind us that what really matters in life are the moral virtues. Saints and moral heroes today are the equivalents of Socrates, the Stoics, and the early Christian martyrs. They may not be as glamorous as Hollywood movie stars, the ones that Susan Wolf admires, nor are they perhaps as physically spectacular as professional athletes who are lionized by the masses and the media in our culture of mediocrity. But they do constitute our most precious moral capital, without which our nation and our world will become bankrupt. Thank you very much.